Hello, this is Christian here. In this video, we'll be working with the one-dimensional arrays in PHP. So here are the objectives. We're going to create one-dimensional arrays, how they are created. We'll look at how arrays can be traversed or looped through the arrays to show all this data. Well, we also look at the parallel arrays. This is a technique to build or design arrays when you run into the issue where you are not allowed to have multiple types in the same array. And we'll do some coding demo. So here is, again, the same images we shown earlier in the other videos to show you what a one-dimensional array looks like. So you can either choose that as a column or a row, it doesn't really matter, but it is identical to the column or row in a table. Then the index always starts at 0, as you can see here, and this is default, and it happens automatically. The negative indices are allowed, and again, we'll talk about this later when we talk about the associative arrays. And so, for example, again, if you want to get the value 30 out of the array, you would use index 2 or the subscript 2 to get that value out of the array. All right, so how do you traverse an array? You can do that using two methods, using a for loop or a while loop, or using the for each loop. This is only applicable for arrays and objects. So let's look at the for loop first and see how they compare with the other for each loop. So this is the array again we saw earlier, and to traverse this array you will use a for loop. So the I will represent the index from 0 through 3, not inclusive, so it'd be 3, and then we echo the arrays using the subscript of I to print each of those out. The for each looks kind of a little bit different, but use the keyword for each, and then you would use the phrase scores, which is the array name, as a value. Okay, so what it does is this function will extract all the values in the array and store those into a variable called value. And this variable value, I've just happened to call it value because it's just the way things are created, but it is not, I mean, you are not limited to use the word value. You can use anything you want. Any variable will be fine. ABC, you know, it's my data, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then you can just echo the value out. Notice I do not use the index at all. Okay, so both of these statements will produce the same result. The for each, as you can see, you have no control of where things are. Like you can't stop at a certain point because you don't have to index. But the for each, I mean the for loop, you know exactly when it happens. And not only that, you can also modify the array because you have access to the array in this case with the exact position. So if I want to suddenly change number 30 before I print it out, I can say scores of I. If I is 2, then scores of I equal to 300, right? You cannot do that using the for each. So down here, if you want to print the index along with the value, then you can do that using the for each also. You can look at the syntax a little bit different. I added the key with the arrow to the value. What this one does is it will pull the keys, which is the indices, and the value, so you have both data available to your use. And this is something that you may want to choose if you want to print the index as well. And by doing that, you get the index, which is the 0, 1, 2, and 3, along with the values. So very handy. Parallel arrays are usually a group of homogeneous data arrays, and this is usually very useful when you are dealing with the static type data language. Things like Java and C, C++, C#, right? Because you cannot contain this more than one different type of data in the same array, so you will end up using parallel arrays. And so all the arrays have the same number of elements. In other words, they are perfect rectangle, right? Rectangular. And they share the same index because when I point to index 0, it applies along to all the other arrays. I'm referencing the same element to a particular group of, I don't know, person, people, or things. So here's an example. Let's say I have an array called names, and I store all the names in there. I have another array to store all the IDs, and another one of all the scores, maybe like test scores. So if I reference index 0, I get all the information about that first person, Abel, his ID, and his scores, and so forth. Okay, so the way to code it would be something very similar. As you can see, it's a for loop from 0 through 3, and I can print the IDs. As notice, I'm using the same index, I, right? I can get the same data, and they all have to match up. If you don't match them up, then you get some errors, and you have inconsistencies, which is not ideal. Okay, so that is the advantage of using the parallel arrays. Of course, there are other ways as well, because in PHP you have total control of the data type. It doesn't have to be the same type, so you can totally do something with it. But this will become more prevalent when we deal with the second or the two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so the result will be, again, if for the first one, I'm just showing the first one there, but each of those iterations will produce something like the following, like the ID, the name, and then their scores. All right. Okay, so let's go into the IDE and do some demo. All right, in the IDE here, I'm in module 6 now. I'm going to create a new file. We're just going to call this PHP file 1D array, 1D arrays, just for some demonstrations. And then after this, we'll do a little bit more practical example. So again, array in PHP, you can just declare array in two ways. One is by using the array constructor. So have a variable called maybe fruits. Okay, usually the name of the variables are usually in plural, because we're now dealing with a collection of data, not just one. It could be none, it could be one, it could be two, it could be 100, it could be 1,000,000. But the idea is it's a collection of data, so therefore the variable should be a little bit meaningful, right? So they should be plural. Whereas if you create just a standard variable to store single data, then usually those are singular. Okay, but again, it's not right or wrong, it's just the convention. So I can do this, fruits equal to array, put the array keyword here, followed by parentheses, and as you can see, this is a constructor. It's like a constructor. You can pass data to the array. If you leave it just like this, then you have an empty array, and there's nothing in there. And just to show you this is actually true, I'm going to save this one here. Go to my terminal. Again, you see that in my videos, most of these are done in the terminal, because I want to quickly point out what the functions are, what the functionality of these things will work. Okay, but really, this is not how you do it in PHP in actual application. But for now, I'm just going to show you what they are like to quickly illustrate that, and then we'll do that in the web browser. So I'm going to go to the module 6. And then I'm going to run the PHP I1D array. So as you can see, there's nothing there. I didn't print anything out. Okay, but if you have to print it out, then you can do a couple of ways. If you do echo like this, all you're going to get is the name array, because it just tells you what it is. Well, in this case, I even can't. Right, I do have. It says array, right? It can convert because it's an object, and usually the echo statement is printing only two strings, so you can't just do this. But the more useful one is when you're testing out your code, is use the var dump. This is one of them. It's a function that dumps your data out to the console or the screen if you want to load on the browser. Either way. So if I save this, if I run it again, you see that it has an array. It's an array of 0 element. So the 0 here is the size. Okay, if you run this in the browser, let me run this now so I can show you, and you can see that it's still probably, it will show the same thing. As you can see, it's this array of 0. Okay, so there's nothing there. Okay, and the other one is called print R. You print the results out. This one here gives you some information as well. I can run both of those. You can see the comparison between the two. The first one is just the var dump. It dumps the array and then has a 0. And then the second one doesn't tell you the size in this case, but it's an array type, and it will have the structure that looks very similar to the array. Now let's go and then add some data to the array. So when you initialize an array this way, there's nothing in there. To add some data to the array, we're talking about just one dimensional here. Okay, so that means the array is a collection of data. I could go and put some, data like numbers, for example, 1, 2, 3 in there. I could have different data types as well. It doesn't have to be only numbers. I could put A, B, C in there, A, B, C, and I can put booleans, things like true and false, right? And many others as well, other objects, which I'm not going to do here. But So you have all these available to display. So now if I save this again and clear my screen, and if I do that, run the command again, you see that now has some stuff in it. Okay, so let's look at the first one first. So the first one, the var dump, gives us the size of the array. It has 8 of them. So if you count, it's going to have 8 elements in there. And then the first element is the 0th index, followed by the value of 1. And the 1, it tells you it's the data type of integer, right? So 1, 2, and 3 are integer types. Now, the third index gives you a string of A. The string type has the size of 1. That's what it means. Maybe I should do something like this: A, B, and then C. So it can tell you the different sizes of those arrays. So here we go. Up here again. So you can see now string A has 1 character, BB has 2 characters, C has 3, and so forth. Now the 6 and 7 indices have the true value, as you can see exactly what's inside there, and they are both Boolean type. Now with the print R down here, it gives you something that will look very much like the above, except now it doesn't give you the size and things like that. It gives you the array structure. This is what will look very similar to the index array we'll see in a different video. But the first index, again, just points to the value. The key here points to the value and so forth. So it just gives you the result of what the array looks like. And has a nice, structure, so you can easily see it. If you look on the browser, you may not have the same look because it may be a little bit ugly because it's not formatted properly. So to show this, you have to format it with a pre-tag or something like that. All right, so that is a one-dimensional array. And then now if you want to, so I'm gonna, turn this off. So I have the array, and then so we know the size is 8, but you want to get the size, so you would do like maybe len is equal to, you can do a count, use the count function to count the elements in the fruits. This is one of them. The other way is to use, let's just say len1 and len2 here, use the function size of. Okay, either one of those will give you the same result, the same number of count. In this case, it should be 8. Okay, and the difference is that the count is the actual function that counts the number of elements. The size of does the same thing. It does the same thing, but this is usually it's like a wrapper function. So in other words, for that would be an alias. It's an alias of the count function. So I mean, the underlying function will still be count. So in the real world example, this is maybe much slower than this because it needs to resort back to the count. So you have some trade-off there. So then this will give you the size, okay, because it'll work in any case, right? You don't want to manually count these and then you put in the loop. So to loop through the array, you use the for loop. So for I, very typical variable for counter I, until I is less than len1. Okay, I'm just using len1 for now. And then I plus plus, and then now you can print out each of those elements to the console or to the browser. So you can say echo the array fruits of I. So you reference each element, the value of each element, by referencing its index value or the subscript. Initially from I of 0, so we start from fruits of 0, will give you the number 1. The next iteration, I increments to 1, and then fruits of 1 will give you 2, and then next one with 3, and all the way to the end of that array until it reaches this condition is no longer true. So if you put that and put a space here, so we can see what those are, if you save it, and I'm going to run the browser, you can see, refresh my screen, and those values are printed here on the browser, exactly same as what you would see in we had in the list here. The only thing is that over here, notice you don't see the 0 and 1, so 0 is not printed out. And again, this is just how PHP works. Okay, it does not print that out for you for some reason, but because it's false. Okay, so I would probably get the same thing in the console. If I go down here and run my terminal. Okay, so you can see that this is true, so you get a 1, and then false, you get a 0, or it's nothing there. Okay. All right, so that is how you loop through the array. The count is, again, we use the count of the size of to get that size. And then what if you do something like this? In the middle of the way, I want to say fruits of, and let me put this above it so I don't have an issue of running into a length problem. So fruits of, because I know I have 8 of them, and if you put anything between 0 through 7, you're going to overwrite these because these are from 0 to 7, right? So if an existing index, say that 7, this is the false example, if I replace it with a value of dog, okay, so now if I run this, you will see that the last one has the word dog in there now. Instead of 0 or empty, it says dog because I'm replacing one. If the index is already present in the array, then if you assign a new value to that index on the slot, that data is going to be overwritten. Okay. If you put something that is not there, so if I do Control D to duplicate this, and if I put, let's just say 10, right? 10 is not in there. And if I put cat in here, okay. So now I have array index 10, and when I print this out, I'm going to have that added to the list, which I don't have in here. Yeah, I don't have it because, okay, so I run to the issue. And the issue is because there's no offset for the index of 8. So again, initially I have 0 position all the way to the 7th position. Okay, and here I'm referencing the 8th. I'm trying to reference the 8th when I do the len count, I get only 8. So the index of 8 is not present because there's no index 8. As you can see, even though these are not shown, these are hidden, right? But the 7 is assigned a dog, which is this one here. And so 10, there's no index of 8. So what that means is that this array will really look something like this. If I were to rewrite this, it will look like this, right? So here, and then this is the 8th. The 8th will be, we have, I don't have here. So the false is now is dog, and then it's nothing there, and then suddenly you have cat. Okay, so this is like 7th, 8th, 8 slot, 9 slot, 10 slot. Okay, so index of 10 points to this location. Okay, so 8 and 9, I don't have anything there, right? So really there's nothing. That's why when you do the len, you still got to get count of 9 items because there are 8 here plus the 10th index, you get 9 total. But when I try to reference the 8th position, it's not there. Okay, so this doesn't work. So be really careful when you do this, because just because I pull the index 10 here, it doesn't mean the size of the array is 10. Okay, it doesn't know that, right? It's still going to count the actual data contained in the array. So in this case, there's only 8 items in the array. Well, actually, no, 9 items, I'm sorry. 9 items. So then, but the index reference is index of 10. So it gets really confusing. Okay, so I'll be very careful when you do this. Index 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th position. 6th position, 7, 8. As you can see, 9. I probably missed something here. Yeah, I might have missed something. So 10. Maybe I have an extra one. Yeah, like that. So the 8th position, did I miss something? Well, 1. Oh, I mistyped my numbers. That's why it would feel a little bit weird. Okay, so again, just want to point this out in a nicely structural way so you can understand where things are. So 9. This is not legal, by the way. I'm just showing you what the slots are. So why this loop here fails. And then so 1, 6, 7. The 8 is empty. The 9 here is empty, and then the 10 is where the cat is. Okay, so these are the slots. Then when you loop through the array, start from 0 to len 1, which is in this case will be 9 now. It's no longer 8, right? It's now 9 because I have the new item, but it's referenced at index 10. So from 0 through 9. And so 0 through 7 is fine because it has value. But the 8th index has no data. And I can't reach the 10 yet because 10 is over here. So that's why the array fails. Okay, so the count will give you 9, but the index is also crucial in this example. So be very careful when you do that. And because, PHP does not automatically pad these in there, so they're not padded by default. They're null, right? So empty, undefined. Okay, so if I put something here, just put like blank and blank, then now it's okay, right? So I have 2 blanks and then the cat. So I clear my screen again down here, run it, and now you see that I have 2 empty slots and then the cat at the end. Okay, so what this tells you is that very different from Java and C++ and C#, you don't have to specify the size of the array initially. It can grow and shrink and grow along the way. So very identical to the array list in Java or the list in Python, things like that. Okay, it shrinks and grows dynamically. And this is also true for JavaScript, I should say most of the loosely typed languages. Okay, so you can't do this in Java, right? Suddenly I put index 10 because I don't have it. So you have to predefine the size first before you can use it, but not true in PHP. Okay, so this is just an example to loop to the array. One thing I want to show you earlier was that you can declare this way. Another way to do this is, I'm going to copy this and turn this off, is to use the bracket, the square bracket like this. You wrap everything with a pair of square bracket like this. So without the keyword array. And so this is a function call, right? It's a constructor. Here, I'm just literally supply the data immediately into the array. So this is called the array literal declaration. And this was made available, I believe after PHP version 5.4, around there. I don't remember exactly what, but this became kind of new. Before that, you have to use the array functions, but now you can use either one. So whichever is shorter, convenient for you, that's fine. So the empty array will be just like fruits a is equal to like that. So that's the empty array. Like I did earlier, array, no data. Okay. All right. So that's the array. So now let's do something a little bit more practical. And I just do a really short one to show you what that may look like in the web browser. So here I have an images folder of some animals, right? Just some pets, dogs and cats, and so on. And an example that you might want to do on the web page is to display this data dynamically on the web page. Right, so let's just say I'm going to create a new file here, a PHP file, we'll call it pets. Okay, so I don't have all the header and footer, but usually you do have those, right? So let's just create them really quick, and I'll copy and paste those in there just to make sure it looks correct. So just put test here. Again, I'm going to copy all the head section out to the top of the page, and then the footer to the bottom, and I don't need this file anymore, so down here like that, right? Okay, so in the head section, this is the pets, and then in the body of the page, maybe over here I put a h1 favorite pets, and then here I'll put all the pet information. Okay, so I will create an array, and you can do here, or you should do on the top, because PHP you can, which is pretty cool, right? Put your code up here, and you separate your code from the actual document. So down here, just display use them. So let's just say I have an array of pets, and to do that, you would do like a parallel array. Okay, so I want to link the page, display the page information, link to a page of itself, and then make that clickable, right, in the URL and so on. So you may have something like this. I'll use a parallel array. Yeah, you don't have to because PHP, gives you the option of storing any data type you want, but I'll show you what a parallel array might be used for in this situation. So I have an array of pets, and this will be an array of pets. So the first one here is called pet1. I think I just called pets1, pet1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so pet1, a JPG. and I'm a little bit lazy, so I'm going to just copy this and paste it here 4 times. Okay, so pet 4 here, pet 3, and then 2. Okay, I know something similar. Now these are the links where this pet will go to if I click on them. So these are the URLs. And again, just kind of change this to pet 1 PHP, okay, page 2 PHP, pet 3, and pet 4, and so on. So you terminate each of those. So something like that. If you have more data to it, you can add in it, like the text content description, same thing. Just make sure they have the same matching index so they match. But let's just say this is all I have. So in the code down there, I'm going to do a loop to display the information here. And now, how do you want this to display? Well, you want to put it, maybe you want to wrap inside a div tag. Inside the div tag, you wrap a anchor tag. Inside anchor tag, you show the image so the image is clickable, right? So here, I'll do a loop. So we say for the index of I, from I until the count of pets. So usually you would do count and then pets like this. This may or may not be ideal, and the reason why I say may or may not be ideal is because if you do this way, every time when you go and do the inspection, the condition test, it's going to do the count every time. So it has to do this operation every time, and so this is not very efficient because this is going to consume memory. At time. So what you do is you take this out and put outside here, and let's just say size or max equals that. Okay, and then you put the max in here so that you don't have to do any more counting. In that way, it loads faster, right? But if it's a very small one like we did here, it doesn't matter. You can still do it, it's fine. But ideally, you would use that do the calculation outside if this number doesn't change. If it does, then you put it in here. Right? If it's in the for loop, I'm going to change the size of the pet, add more, or truncate or delete more, delete some of it, then you put the count here every time. But if it's fixed, then you put that this way. Okay, so you increment that, and then now you need to put, for every image going to echo a div, wrap inside a div, and then inside the div I have what I have, the anchor tag, right? So again, just if you don't know what this, if you can't wrap this in your head, just go into the HTML and then out here and put everything here, design everything here first, and then grab that and put it back into your code, and you can shift things around. But it's going to be anchor tag. It's going to link to, where does it go? Well, it's going to go to the URL here. The first one goes here, second goes here, and third and so forth. So I can say href equals. I'm going to do a single quote here to wrap my anchor tag, right? So you have the anchor tag here, and then I might have a target to go into a different page. So I'll put here again the single quote blank, and then I close my anchor tag like that. This is the opening tag, and then I'll come back and finish the other part later. And then after that is the actual image. So in here then is the image tag. Well, image tag needs src. Again, that will go into the source. And you might have an alt, right, if you have one. And where do this data come from? Well, you decide, because that could be another array here for alt text, right? So the image goes here, and then after the image, then I need to close my anchor tag. So close the anchor tag. After I close my anchor tag, I need to close my div tag. Okay, so there you go. This is my structure for that image, single image. Every single image will have this same exact structure. And you can put a div here if you want, but I would like to separate so it matches this one up here. Okay, so now it's just the content. So the URL will go here. Okay, you could put here directly the URL, of that URLs of 1, right? The index of 1. And then, so I'm going to escape this. Okay, escape that to make sure everything works. It'll be the URL of I, and then put back that single quote and close it there. Okay, the same thing with the src. Close that, and then concatenate the pets image of I, close that, and then concatenate back again. All right, so I don't have anything here. I'll just leave it there, but it's nothing there. Okay, so I think that might be it. And actually the images, as you can see, it's not just pets, it's inside the folder called images, right? So I have to reference that here. Inside the images slash and then pet1, pet2, and so forth. Okay, so if I save this and run this file, and if I run it and see what that looks like, so I'm going to load the same page here, same place here. So, I have some information incorrectly here. So index 4 is not found because for line 21. So this is how you would kind of debug, right? So at line 22 and line 21, 22. So you go to pets here, line 22. It says index of 4 is not found. I have to say, what is max? Max, I do a pets count 0, 1, 2, 3, but I kind of count 4. And then I have, yeah, why is 4 is not working here? Because pets, it's all there. All right, so this is one of those examples where you run into unexpected errors. Okay, what this does is actually it prints only this because I didn't put a closing and opening curly braces here, right? Which is kind of bad. So you make sure you wrap this inside the for loop. And I can't believe I missed that, but you need to wrap that inside here. Okay, so save that and let's load it again and refresh it. Hopefully it shows up. Okay, so here are my pets. As you can see, they're like, well, they're a block level, so they're all here. It's kind of hard to see. And if I click on it, it should load a new page called pet 1. I don't have it, so it's not there, but pet 2 and so on. Okay, if you make this a little bit meaningful, then you can put here a style sheet, right? Put a style sheet here if you want, and maybe I'll put up here in the head section, I'll put a style rule, and I'll put the div. There's only one div, so I'll put div here, maybe margin of say 10 or 5, give it a margin, give it a border, 1px solid green. What else do I need? Maybe the display as well, change it to not block, but maybe inline block. Okay, and maybe I want to have some fun with this one here, so I'll make it this draggable. Something you might want to do if you want to, use jQuery. So I can say here ID, give it ID of drag me, right? So every image div tag can be draggable. To do that, you just have to basically add a script here. Okay, I have too many ones here. So we move that, and then here would be a jQuery function. But first, let's just say we go to jQuery and download that. Let me close this library. So if you go here, if you go to jQuery, and just go to the link here, and I'm going to go and download to the very bottom of the page. Max here. Go to the CDN, and I'll use the version 3.4. I think that should be fine. Use the minified version. Grab all of this, okay, and then go back to the script and post it right up here. I also need the jQuery UI, for example. So close that, go to the UI down here and use the 1.12. Grab that. I can close this now. And then go back to the file and put right below it. So jQuery needs to come first. So now, once I got that, then I can have a target ID of drag me. So instead of script here, I can do the jQuery. Again, this is not PHP, but part of jQuery. So I can do that here. Anonymous function, arrow function calls that function here. And inside here, just basically drag me. What I'm dragging any div tag, the div tag with ID of, maybe not ID, it'll be a class because I have a lot of them, right? The class of drag me. So here would say $, and then the dot drag me, because classes are dot, uses the dot, drag me, and then draggable. You call that function, and that's it. Very, very quickly like that. And so if I save this and go to the browser and refresh my page, all right, so I have the green background here. I can drag my images around. At the same time, they are clickable. Okay, so you can see how quickly I put this together. Now it's just a matter of adding more interaction with it on the front end, like JavaScript, jQuery, and then you will do more at the back end with PHP. So I hope this is helpful. Again, let me know if you have questions, and I'll see you in the next video when we talk about the two-dimensional arrays.